All right, we're doing a little bit of video on boot care, taking care of your boots. I think boots are an important part of your work situation, and a lot of times when I'm walking around a place, I identify people by their boots. So it's kind of like a thing that makes a statement about what you are, what type of work you're doing. So it matters more than just the cleaning of the boots and caring for them. That will save you a lot of money in the long run, buying more boots than you need to. But on top of it, it's like dressing nice, like shows what kind of person you are. So we're going to start off, we have a few boots here. These boots have never been oiled or anything, and they've been used already. So we're going to try to get them oiled and waxed and, get their long-term care going. But you can see they didn't have any laces. So when you have a work boot with laces, make sure you remove the laces first. These guys are just going to get a cleaning. These are my ones that I have been working with. You can see they've gotten a decent amount of dirt caked up there. So what do we need? Here's Oberknopf's. This is kind of like, it says leather preservative, but it's kind of like a feed and wax. So it's going to have an oil and a wax in here. And this is good for like a light touch up after you've already done your main waxing. Currently you have my main wax for like the very first wax in, but this will do for now. You're going to want something to kind of work the wax into the leather. For cleaning, we have here a saddle soap. So that's basically something that you lather up, rub it into your leather, and then wipe it away. And it's not like you're sitting there with hand soap trying to clean it out. This is made for leather. If you wanted to permanently change the color of your boots, you can do that with a shoe polish. And you'll notice with the shoe polish, it'll also make the finish of your leather more like that versus like that, right? There's a difference there. You see this one has more of a shine to it. But these are more optional. They don't really make a difference in the longevity of your leather. You'll notice with boots, they'll get these wrinkle spots. And if you look really closely on this one, you can see the leather's kind of actually separating. So there's a deeper layer, and then the surface layer has created basically like tiny little bubbles where they've lifted up. And the nice thing about oiling and waxing it is that's what you're going to prevent. You're making the layers more malleable when you take a step. They're not trying to rip the fibers apart. They're more flexible than they used to be. Just like you would oil a baseball mitt, right? And you do that so that way your baseball mitt is more flexible and it lasts a lot longer. And now you're just gonna work it in to the boot. And what I'm doing here is because I started with a big wet glob is I'm kind of coming back and trying to pick up some of that globbiness and move it over into areas that are still dry. I almost have 100% coverage. So now we have 100% coverage. Now we're just going to go and try to work the oil and wax into the leather. Especially in my wrinkle zones. Work those in really, really well. So they're even more obvious now. You can really tell. But this is going to stop that damage from growing. So after we've worked it in to satisfaction, then we're just going to wipe off the excess with some kind of rag. This will turn the rag brown, so don't use a rag you want to use in the future. Like for example, the microfiber, you'd probably want to reuse a microfiber towel. If you use a microfiber towel, it'll just ruin it. It'll be permanently stained brown. So at this stage, what we're looking for is a hazy finish and no visible streak marks. The streaks mean that there's still some wax kind of just like chilling on the top, or oil chilling on the top. And you kind of want, because that's going to attract dirt, so you're going to want that to be wiped down and really just the oil that's embedded in the leather to remain. Now we can compare the two boots. There it is. So this one will get its own treatment after the video is over. But now let's move to a cleaning. So this is a boot, it's already been waxed in the past. And so what you're gonna want to determine is, do you need a cleaning and a waxing, or just a cleaning? Right, so when I have a bunch of dirt on it like this, it definitely needs the cleaning. I'm gonna have to run and grab a little bit of water in a moment. But yeah, to start off with, we're gonna take off the laces, and if you don't do that, you're gonna get laces like really nasty and sticky, and that's not gonna help you tie your laces in the future. It's gonna make it gross. Right now I'm just getting chunks of dirt out. Look at that, all that dirt. So here's my danger zone on this boot. This is a really bad flex point for this boot. You can see where it's flexing there, and this one's really, really bad. So that's beginning to really damage the leather there. So I'll probably add some oil there to try to help it out. But you can over oil a boot, and basically you make the leather too soft. Up here seems, there's a little bit of like bubbling in the leather, but that's not too bad really. This one's the only bad one right there. But yeah, so I'm gonna go run and grab some water. I'll be right back. So now we're getting the saddle soap. Oh, and before we do that, I'm just gonna use the same brush. I'm gonna try to work the remaining oil off of it. Okay, back to the saddle soap. So this is like a soap in the fact that you work it into a lather type of thing. We need some more. Pretty large boots. Now this is different than the oil, so you're not really wanting it to come to a dry. So I add a little bit of water to the brush to kind of keep the moisture going on this soap, because I'm going to come through and wipe it all up. I want that dirt all easily removed. Now we're going to take extra care to also hit each kind of like crevice, because that's where the dirt will remain. That, like, I can't really just easily wipe that off. You see all the dirt there. Now I'm going to dry off the brush again. And just kind of get at some of these like eyelets. Crevices a bit. And then here, you can see the difference there. That's somebody who cares about their boots. This is somebody who doesn't. And now we're going to get a little bit of oil. I'm not even going to use the brush here. I'm just going to use my finger. So when we're looking at the boot, determine if we need oil or not. I'm kind of looking to see how waxy this is, and I can feel it, and this doesn't feel like a that's a waxy one, or no, that's the waxy one. Right, that feels like dry leather. Wait, your finger moves on it, and then you go like this. It's much more waxy. So you can also tell it from like the haze. It's not like a shiny boot. It's like a hazy finish, and that's the little bit of wax. So I don't need to add more oil and wax to the rest of this boot. I'm just trying to take care of this little damaged spot, try to make it a little more flexible, because that's just going to continue to be flexed once the boot has, excuse me, once the boot has kind of set its flex points. It's usually determined by the shape of your foot. Those flex points aren't going to move somewhere else, right? Like, it is what it is now. And so all you can do at this point is just try to take care of that crease, try to keep it as healthy as possible. But eventually this is where the boot will fail. That will be the failure point. It'll turn into a hole that will let water in, and at that point this boot's done. And then it's good to keep like one pair of nasty boots for like nasty jobs around the house or something, where you know the boot's gonna get like covered in mud, covered in dust, covered in dirt, or whatever, and then keep one pair that you try to keep nicer for work conditions. So actually currently, this is kind of why I'm not stressing this much about the crack. I already have a fresh pair of boots for when these do fail. They're like brand new. So eventually these guys will go, but you'll save a lot of money in the long run if you take care of it. So there's your difference. And that's how you take care of your boots. You start off waxing them. After your initial wax, then you move to just cleaning them and just kind of upkeep. Alrighty. I decided to make a part 2 because I moved on, so you can see both these boots are done, both those boots are done. And I was starting to work on my wife's kind of like yard work, horsework boots, and I thought we're just going to need a cleaning, but we have 2 things to talk about here. So take a look first at the color difference. So these are normally a gray boot. Here's after the soap, here's before the soap. So if you look at that, you almost think that's a brown boot there, right there. But once you use the soap, you're like, oh, that's definitely a gray boot. So the soap was able to lift off that amount of dirt. So the soap is really effective at its job. So definitely get yourself some soap. And then the second thing to look at is if you take a look at the finish on this boot, there's not very much wax apparent to me versus this boot. The wax, it feels much more apparent. So this one's gonna get a wax, whereas this one I decided no, it doesn't need it. So there you can visually see the difference in a boot that needs waxing, that has already had a wax in the past, but you kind of can't tell. And this one where you're like, yeah, that does not need a waxing currently. I want to say that this one had the Nick wax, the really heavy stuff, because when I bought this, it was like November or something, and it was really snowy and wet and gross, and I wanted to make sure that the boots lasted through the winter. Whereas these are a few years old, and I can pretty much guarantee I didn't even have the Nick wax at that time, so it would only had the Obenauf's stuff at that time, and you can tell like, yeah, we need some more wax on there. So that's just a good representation of the visual difference between, and you can feel it too, honestly, the way your fingertip feels on a wax versus on a shoe that doesn't have enough wax. You can just feel the difference. So yeah, I just want to make that to just kind of show that example.